Let's focus on a story that would have got a massive amount of front-page headline treatment if it hadn't been released on Friday. When the student protests were reaching their height, the government was backing down, announcing there would be no increase for next year. And also, a lot of people were very interested in what would happen between the Springboks and the All Blacks the following day. That was the decision. To basically go back on the Department of Home Affairs regulations, the very controversial visa regulations, which were in two different spaces. One was around unabridged birth certificates for unaccompanied children, and the other was around biometric testing and the necessity to physically go to someone like Beijing or Delhi to get your visa instead of being able to do it through some means remotely because of the need for biometric testing. Cyril Ramaphosa, who has to fix everything that's going on at the moment, headed a committee on this, and as a result, all kinds of compromises announced on Friday. David Frost is the CEO of the SA Tourism Services Association. Man has been very involved in the lobbying on this and the issues around it, and he joins me now. David, a very good afternoon to you.
Good afternoon, Mike. Hi. How are you going?
I'm doing all right, and happier to hear this news. Would have been even happier if it didn't happen in the first place, so no doubt that's your sentiment.
Absolutely. No, look, it's been a long struggle, but we are just incredibly, grateful that the IMC under the Deputy President has come out and made the concessions that were announced. I mean, this is positive for tourism, and we can all start working together to not only claw the markets we've lost back, but to start putting runs on the board in some of our main source markets as well.
David, if you just bear with me for 1 second, I will come back to you. I first want to go to the Deputy Director General for Communication Services at Home Affairs, Mayahlome Shweta, who joins me now. Mayahlome, a very good afternoon to you.
Good afternoon, and good afternoon to your listeners too.
When will these changes be implemented?
There are ones that are easier to implement, and we're looking at about a period of about 3 months. Amongst those is the biometrics at the port of entry, which will begin piloting towards the end of November. We'll start immediately looking at the Trusted Tourism Company, and then we'll begin looking at registered sports groups in South Africa for them to give permission to minors to travel out of the country. And then the ones that we have to look at legal instruments is not issuing out a strong advisory for markets like Europe where we don't have visa requirements. As we've been saying to the likes of David Frost and them, that everything the Department of Home Affairs is doing is within the current law and in line with the Constitution. So if we are going to move away from that, we need to look at the legal instruments that would give us the ability to do that. So that's what we have to look at now in terms of the strong advisory. But as it is right now, people who are coming to South Africa must still bring their unabridged birth certificate, or what they just call a birth certificate. And if they're traveling without parents, they must get letters of consent.
So is there any change as of now?
Sorry?
Is there any change as of now in that birth certificate requirement, or is everything as it was last week?
Sorry, I missed you there, sir.
I just want to know, has anything changed immediately, or is it at the moment, is it exactly what it was last week? Still, same requirements still in place?
No, as I'm saying, there are certain agreements that have been made for certain markets, but for the areas where we've agreed to change them, it can't happen overnight. So we were not thumb-sucking the policies; they were happening in accordance to the law. So whatever amendments we have to make, as I was saying, it's going to take 3 to a year to make those alterations, and there we are only speaking about countries like many Europe countries in America which don't have visa requirements. We have an agreement for countries that have visa requirements like China and India, where tourism sector claims was a very important market for them. We have an agreement there that they must still give their unabridged birth certificate, but they don't have to travel with them when they come to South Africa. We have an agreement with them that biometrics will be submitted at the port of entry instead of them having to travel distances to South African embassies and visa facilitation centers. So those ones are almost immediate. That's what I'm saying. It's going to take a period of 3 to 12 months for them to come into effect. Yeah.
Okay, just that last bit, I'm still confused. The biometrics, having to travel to Beijing to personally get my visa, that no longer applies. I can automatically do that now and do my biometrics on point of entry.
Yes, which has been the operating procedure for the last year or so. So in those markets, we hadn't yet said to people that they must travel to embassies, and currently they won't have to travel to embassies too. They will just submit we'll try increase our visa facilitation centers there. They will send their staff in, because some people still prefer to go into visa facilitation centers. Those that can't will send their staff in, and then we'll capture their biometrics at the port of entry, as you were saying. The biometrics at the port of entry will begin piloting at OR Tambo at the end of November.
My Shlomo Schwete on the line there from Home Affairs, where he's Deputy Director General of Communication Services. David Frost, was that clear to you? It wasn't to me.
No, look, I mean, it is actually quite clear. I mean, in essence, these are important sort of steps forward. I mean, previously, if the legislation was carried out, people were being required to actually travel inside countries such as China and India to actually go and capture biometrics at places like Shanghai and Beijing. That will no longer apply, and there's also a role now for accredited travel agents within those markets to sort of provide a sort of screening service and to facilitate that. But also, very importantly, there were markets where we didn't have a consular presence. Under the previous dispensation, those people, so for example, if you were in Bogota in Colombia, you would have either had to fly to Lima in Peru or Caracas in Venezuela to actually go and apply in person for a visa. That no longer applies. On the unabridged birth certificates, essentially for visa exempt countries, so these are our main markets of North America and Europe in the main, they will no longer have to carry these documents and the supporting stuff with them. Now, clearly there's obviously an implementation phase. We just telling our members and the tour operators, everybody just take a deep breath. There's obviously some technicalities that have to be ironed out, but we just need to remain patient. This will all wash out, and we will be in a far better space in a couple of weeks than we are at the moment. And when that happens, we need to rally our forces together and go back and work jointly to actually take advantage of the exchange rate and claw back our market share.
Okay, so we have to undo some of the damage. And I'm assuming from what I've heard and read that outbound South Africans, children unaccompanied, do still need what we call the unabridged birth certificate. You still need that.
As I understand it, that provision hasn't changed, so they would still need to actually have the unabridged certificate. And I think in the case of single parents travelling, the supporting affidavits and documentation.
We have been accused in the media, you have been accused in the travel lobby of exaggerating the impact of this, David. That's been one of Home Affairs' default responses. How bad has it been in your perspective?
Well, look, it certainly has had a severe impact on our industry, because I know that from members who've given us quite clear data from their companies about business that they've lost. But look, now's the time not to recriminate and sort of focus on that. We really just want to look forward. Everybody's really supportive. We're behind these. We're behind the sort of concessions and the changes. And our job is, this is what we do. Our job is to go out and sell. So that's what people are looking forward to. But we can do that now in a way that is unencumbered. Having these restrictions put in the face of our member companies just made it incredibly difficult to do business. I mean, what happened in China is that a lot of the Chinese tour operators, when confronted with this, pulled us out of their brochures. So we need to go and do that hard work now by sitting down with them and actually saying, look, these things have been taken off the table. Put South Africa back in the brochure. What more can we do with you? And actually have some extra marketing efforts to actually be applied in key markets like China, India, and Russia, where we've seen quite significant declines, up to 40%.
David Frost, thank you very much indeed for your time. CEO, SA Tourism Services.